Hello, and welcome back to Talking Freight, the weekly freight series brought to you by Cerasis, a North American third-party logistics company specializing in over-the-road transportation management solutions through our services and technology. And therefore, that makes us an expert to aid you, the shipper, and to educate the industry at large on all matters freight, shipping, logistics, and transportation. Now, if you're a weekly watcher of our series, you know that we love to give you helpful tips that you can take back right to your shipping department and help you improve in order to increase efficiency and decrease overall costs. So speaking of cost, we're going to kind of dovetail off of last week's episode about accessorials and talk a little more about what that entails, and that's freight and transportation accounting. So today we're going to talk about the three core considerations for a best-in-class freight and transportation accounting program. So there's really three sound areas to consider. The first is freight auditing and payment. Now, this involves freight invoice auditing specifically. Now, Inbound Logistics has reported that about 10% of any shipper's budget or even sales or revenue could come from transportation costs. So, for example, a shipper that is $100 million in sales revenue could have $10 million in total transportation costs. Now, in that $10 million could be comprised of several hundred or thousands of shipments a year. That's a lot of different freight invoices coming into your accounts payable folks. And so that's a lot of money going in and a lot of money going out. And therefore, it's very important that every invoice you receive from each carrier is audited to make sure it's accurate and that carriers are paid on time, because you don't want to have a lot of late payments that could really hang up your relationships with carriers. So the first core principle of any good program is a freight audit and payment program. Now, each invoice you get, you want to make sure that you look for certain things like accessorials or any extra charges or a price that was higher than the quote that you originally received. Now, if you're not auditing those freight invoices, you want to make sure you start doing that today. If you don't know how to do that, you may want to get with a consultant or look at a 3PL who can bundle that in with other services like freight claims management or as they offer a TMS as technology to aid you in booking all of your shipments. Now, when it comes to freight payment, now you can arrange friendly payment terms with carriers, but with that amount of invoices coming in every day and going out, it's really hard to keep up with if you're paying the right carriers as you select different ones for maybe individual shipments that you've had in just one day. And add that up over a week, a month, a quarter, a year, it might get confusing on who you're paying. So it can be quite complex. So freight payment services are out there through different providers, so you should definitely look into a freight payment service as well. The second core consideration for a best-in-class transportation accounting program is freight invoice consolidation. So this is what comes with a freight payment program, or if you're working with maybe a freight broker or a third-party logistics company like Cerasis. Now, what this means is, let's say you did 1,000 shipments in 1 week. That could be made up of several different carriers, maybe a couple dozen. And so you may get 1,000 individual invoices, or maybe just a few as maybe a carrier that you use frequently consolidated those. A lot of shippers, in order to decrease that paperwork, will isolate their shipping to just one carrier. And that could lead you to not using the right carrier for your specific freight, or you may not be paying the cost that you want to pay because you're not diversifying your carriers and you're not making sure that you do get the best price and best service for each shipment. So freight invoice consolidation, there's many benefits to this. Working with a company like Cerasis, we give our customers each week just one invoice, no matter how many shipments they did. That invoice comes from Cerasis. We pay the carrier on the shipper's behalf, oftentimes before you've even paid us back. Now, there's some advantages to that. It's a lot more efficient, a lot less paperwork. It mitigates the risk of missing a payment or maybe somebody getting your information because it's all in one invoice. Thirdly, you can access typically that one invoice online, and it's easy to see and easy to pay. So a freight invoice consolidation as a part of your overall transportation accounting program can really streamline things and free up your accounting folks to focus on other issues, to stay more strategic. Now, inherent to all of this invoicing going on, and especially as the invoicing systems move online, a good sound principle, the third consideration, would be to make sure you're getting data and analyzing the information you see out of your freight invoices. What comes in that? Well, you can see which carriers have dinged you with more reways, reclasses, more accessorials, extra charges, or just errors and variances between what you were quoted and what you actually received. And so a transportation management system can aid you in that. It can keep all of that data in one centralized location. You can then look at that data and say, well, is this carrier really best for my goals when it comes to accounting? And it may not be. So working with a technology provider or a third-party logistics company who can help you consolidate those invoices and then make that data available and then help you analyze that data so you can make sure you're using the best carriers who align with your accounting practices, then it just allows you to spend less time, gain more efficiency, and reduce overall costs. And make sure you're using the carriers that aren't, giving you more cost than you have to. So that is the 3 core principles to have a best-in-class transportation accounting program. Now, with any program like that, even if it's best-in-class, it's never perfect. There still will be errors with your invoices. You may not catch them all, but if you're doing it in-house, it may be much more difficult. So when it comes to transportation accounting, if you've never really thought of how you can improve shipping from an accounting side of things, I encourage you to do so. So that's our series on transportation accounting and those 3 principles. I hope you enjoyed that information, and it's got you thinking a little more beyond just the tactical processing of shipments and to think more about total cost ownership and how you can look at different facets of your business, and that can help you decrease costs. So thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Talking Freight. Make sure you don't miss a single episode by hitting that subscribe button. If you want to get an email notification for each one that we publish every Friday, you can hit the bell icon. Make sure you follow us on social media as well, on places like Twitter or LinkedIn, to get invaluable information about the supply chain and logistics industries. That's it for us this week on Talking Freight. We'll see you next week.